I'll tell you what, it feels really good to be back. Tramell Jones, you are a Florida Gator.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI.com. And the Florida Gators have landed a commitment from blue chip quarterback Tramell Jones in the 2025 class. Blue chip, depending on where you look. He's a 3-star or a 4-star. I believe 3 stars on 24/7, 4-star on On3. It's been, and like someone mentioned, by the way, it's been a long time since we've been able to go live for a Florida Gators commitment. So it feels good to be back. I'm not going to lie. Tramell Jones is a 3-star on On3, a 3-star on 24/7, a 4-star on ESPN, and a 4-star on Rivals, but he's a 4-star in the On3 industry composite. And so that's where we go with Tramell Jones. The Florida Gators have a quarterback for the 2025 recruiting class, something that I have not been able to say for quite some time. Tramell was on campus this past weekend. He was committed to the Florida State Seminoles, decommitted a couple weeks back, and it was, I guess, once he decommitted, it was kind of like, okay, well, he was potentially going to flip to Florida this summer. And so Florida very much was right up there. Finally got a big momentum-changing win here and walked away with a commitment from Tramell Jones, which is just huge. He is a Jacksonville kid, so he's an in-state quarterback, an in-state recruit. He is on On3's composite, the 4th highest rated player in this class. It is Vernell Brown III, Ben Hanks Jr., Jalen Wiggins, and then Tramell Jones. And Tramell Jones comes with not just being Tramell Jones, right? It's not just that you get a quarterback, which, by the way, the most important position in football, the most valuable position in sports, arguably the most valuable position in sports. You've got a guy there in the 2025 class where for a long while, I think a lot of people, myself included, were like, hey, I don't know what they're really going to do with 2025 because DJ Lagway is a true freshman. Will Griffin's committed in 2026. Not a ton of people are going to look at the 2025 class and say, oh, yeah, I can step in and be a quarterback here. Florida did need to put additional pressure here, Florida did need to put additional emphasis on adding a quarterback, at least one quarterback in the 2025 class. Wouldn't shock me if they also went portal to add a second one, especially when you look at what happened just a few weeks ago, right? Graham Mertz tore his ACL earlier in the season. DJ Lagway hurt his hamstring against Georgia, and then you were stuck with Aiden Warner, who's completely not viable as a quarterback in the SEC. You had to put emphasis so that, hey, if this happens next season, look, we're not going to have Graham. You put added emphasis on Tramell Jones. You landed him, and it's a huge addition for your class. And again, I mean, I openly, I was like in the summer, I pretty much chalked up, hey, you might not get a QB at all. But this is huge. This is huge when you have the momentum swinging the way that it is seemingly swinging for the Florida Gators in recent weeks. Georgia, you were leading until DJ Lagway got hurt. And that gave a lot of the fan base some hope, right? Texas game happened, was ugly, was bad, was horrible. Then LSU, you go out there and you get into an absolute dogfight with the team where they dominated time of possession, but you went out there and got the victory, and that's huge. And that was a big win. That was the first big win for Billy in a long time, where there were a lot of recruits on campus, a lot of recruits in the stadium watching that game. And you went out there and you hit the gritty. I think that's why Tramell Jones committed. I think he saw Billy Napier hit the gritty and he was like, you know what? That's my coach. I think that's what it was. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's where he went. But this is a great addition. Tramell Jones is someone that personally, like I've watched his film. I'm not going to trash the kid at all. I think that he's got a skill set that can contribute at the SEC level. I don't know if he could be a full-time starter, but if we're looking at someone that, hey, you got to be coming in a pinch if something happens to Lagway, I'm happy with it. Like, I think that Tramell Jones has dual threat ability. I don't think he's going to be, ripping off 70-yard runs in the SEC. Like, he's not going to be Anthony Richardson again, but I do think that he can have a dual threat ability, which would help, especially if something were to happen to Lagway. You have that dual threat quarterback, run the RPO, run the option, get things going. Passing ability. And one thing I loved about him was that whenever he scrambles, he's an extender. He's not a true scrambler in the sense of like, oh, once I get out the pocket and I'm moving, I'm trying to get downhill and pick up yardage there. He does that. But one thing he does that I love is that he extends the play and he's looking downfield. Like he's looking to throw the football. And it's a beautiful thing to see. It is. You don't see many high school kids that are keeping their eyes downfield to throw the football. It's just not a common thing right now. Having someone in state is huge. Also, you have to acknowledge, and we've got to be real about it, Tramell Jones was supposed to be the quarterback for the Florida State 2025 class. He was the guy that they were building around there, right? That means that all the kids that were committed to Florida State, Tramell can now hit them up and say, hey, remember everything we said we would do at Florida State? What if we did that in the SEC? What if we did that at Florida? And that's what Tramell Jones allows you to do. He allows you to kind of pop in there. Solomon Thomas. Something tells me not Peyton Joseph, just based on, him previously being committed and how that ended and how that's gone since then. But you can look at a ton of other people and just say, hey, maybe we're looking at that. And their class is falling apart. Daniel Pierre-Louis was also, I believe, on campus this past weekend. Florida's been recruiting him as well. You can look at the kids that are just from the state of Florida that Tramell Jones may have a relationship with, notably someone like Hilton Stubbs that people are going to mention, which I don't think Hilton Stubbs is going to be a Gator. But just in terms of who goes to Mandarin, who's from Jacksonville, any of that stuff, you've got the door. But now you've also got your quarterback for the 2025 class where anybody he knows he can talk to, even if they weren't Florida State, like let's say they committed to, I don't care, Georgia Tech. But he knows him, like he's going to be able to circle back and spin the block on that one. And that can be huge. You think, or I think that you can convince some of the other kids that may have been on the fence, like, hey, this is the momentum that's starting to build just a few short weeks before early signing day. Early signing day is what? 20 days away? Less than that? 16 days away? 17 days away? Early signing day is right around the corner. This is part of a butterfly effect, we could say. It'll help you maybe keep Tayshawn Gelsey, who's also from Jacksonville. Not that he's a flight risk. It's just the first name that I saw when I looked at the recruiting list. Tayshawn Gelsey, maybe, also from Jacksonville there. You can look at what you can do with the rest of this class, and you can at least make this a respectable class, where right now you're ranked 45th, going up from 51st, but now you're 45th. You can at least make this a respectable and acceptable class for Billy Napier here in the 2025 class. Any questions, any comments, anything, put them in the chat. We will get back to them when we return for Locked On Gators. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates. And remember, you can't tailgate all day if you don't start in the morning. Touchdown celebrations or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot, which is a special flavor called Fan fuel, the energy shot made just for super fans like all of us, the fans who are first in the parking lot and last to leave. We see a 5-Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a hell of a lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for a big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long, and that's why the limited edition Stan the Fan 5-Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5-Hour Energy, available on 5hourenergy.com and ship nationwide. And if you're looking to go to, I don't know, the final Florida Gators home game of the season against Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin coming to town, Princely Uman coming to town, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I've said before, I only use Game Time now. Concerts, football games, baseball games, anything I've gone to this year has been through Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account with the code Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Welcome back to a live episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever listen to the podcast. And I see Ryan Tupper in the chat talking about Jamie French. I will say that I think there's a chance that could be a Florida Gators commit. As far as DJ Pickett, look, first off, did not come on the visit to Florida, went to Georgia instead this past weekend, which also was an LSU thing. But I would say I feel like with DJ Pickett, it's such a long shot. I'd rather just allocate resources elsewhere. It is what it is. You didn't want to come here before. That's fine. I think it's a long shot to flip him. I think that if he leaves LSU, he'd be more likely to go to Miami. That's fine. Go get someone else. I don't think he's a generational DB. So I don't look at that as anything there. But Florida genuinely is set to build some momentum on the recruiting trail in coming weeks, right? Stephon Shivers, a defensive tackle out of Brentwood Academy in Tennessee, is maybe thought of as the most likely next commit for the Florida Gators. Would be a big ad, literally a big ad. He's a giant human being. I don't know if you've ever seen him. But the Florida Gators recruiting class is kind of starting to take shape. You got 13 commits on 24/7. However, one's a kicker, one's a punter. So 11 offense defense commits, right? You got Vernell Brown III at receiver, and then also at receiver, you have Nashawn Montgomery, at least for the time being. You lost Joshua Moore to Miami. At DB, you've got Ben Hanks at cornerback. There could be some reclassification with 2026 kids. Jalen Wiggins on the edge, Waltez Clark at running back, Miles Johnson at linebacker, Tramell Jones there on 24/7. Again, he is significantly lower on 24/7 than he is on 3's composite. Also, he's listed as 6 foot 196. Wouldn't shock me if we found out that he's closer to 5'11 there, which again, I mean, that's like marginal difference at that point, but wouldn't shock me there. Nashawn Montgomery below Tramell Jones, Tayshawn Gelsey, Micah Jones, Chad Gasper at running back, who's been on the podcast before, Jeremiah McLeod on the defensive line, who was just a few weeks ago very openly thought of as a flight risk, we'll say. That's what I like to call flight risk there. I know that he was getting the crystal balls to Georgia. Is it possible that Florida, especially with improved defensive line play, is now maybe making a viable case to retain him? Florida, I think one of the reasons that I think this LSU game was such a big win for Florida, and I do think it was a big win. I understand LSU looked like fool's gold, right? I mean, they lost to USC, who that looks like a horrible loss now. They won 6 straight, and then now they've lost 3 straight. They look like fool's gold. However, that win was huge because it was no longer just the kids are playing hard, right? Because that was the thing. It was always, the kids are playing hard. The kids are playing hard for Billy. The kids care for Billy. They're playing hard for Billy. But you were losing games. You went out there and get into a dogfight with LSU and you win that game. And it's, the kids are playing hard and we're finally winning the game when they're playing hard. It's not just, they're playing hard in a loss, like they look good in the loss. It's that they were playing hard and they won the game. And it felt like they won the game. Like it wasn't just, like they squeaked, but like it felt like Florida won that game. It felt like Florida kind of deserved to win that game. I know LSU had the ball for 93 plays. It felt like Florida deserved to win that. And I think that's a big selling point when we talk about recruiting here. Because Billy Napier, whether anybody wants to acknowledge it or not, is likely going to be the coach next year, right? He got the vote of confidence from Scott Strickland. They're 1-1 since that time. But Billy Napier got that vote of confidence. He's going to be here next year. The main thing that people would ask about Billy, or people would say about Billy to negatively recruit him, was he's going to lose his job. And even though you got that vote of confidence from Scott Strickland for this year, the 2026 recruiting class is going to deal with the same thing of, he made it through by the skin of his teeth. He's going to lose his job. You win a game like LSU, and you can put that one, you can quiet that down a little bit. If you can beat an Ole Miss, the talk's done. And I'm not saying that the whole fan base is there, but I'm saying that the talks die down significantly if you can beat Ole Miss, if you can beat Florida State. You can go out there and maybe win a bowl game. The talks die down. And so your talks died down a little bit about, Billy Napier is going to get fired and Tramell Jones commits. And you've got some more momentum. Like, they've been building momentum with some kids. I'm not going to say that they've done this perfectly at all, because they haven't. And assistant coaches are very much more at fault with some of the recruiting stuff than I think just Billy is. But they're building momentum, right? That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to build momentum here. And you're trying to be able to field a legitimate 2025 class. Because while everybody can talk about, they're going to spend a bunch of money on the transfer portal. Yeah, sure. You can spend a bunch of money on the transfer portal. You still need to use high school recruiting to build a foundation of your roster. The way that the portal works successfully, in my opinion, is you build the foundation of your roster. You go and you get your star players through high school recruiting and you develop them and you build them that way. And then you look at your team and you say, all right, we have a weakness at safety. We have a weakness at running back. Let's go into the portal and let's go get those players that can come in and play immediately and make us a better team. You look at it the way that you handle free agency, or that you handle building a team in the NBA or the NFL, where you say, hey, we're going to go and draft the bulk of our team. We're going to go add elite talent that way. And then we're going to go into free agency and add players that can help us win games there. And that's what Florida's doing. That's why I don't fault that process. I think it's taken way too long than it should have, but I respect the idea of saying, hey, we need to build this team through recruiting and then go add portal players that can be impact players for us. An Elijah Badger, a George Gumbs Jr., those kinds of players, a Triquez Bridges, a Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, those kind of guys. You go add them, a Chim Dike. You add them to your team through the transfer portal. And that's how you get a lot better. That's how you build this team. And so for Florida, yes, you could say quality over quantity, but you still need quantity. That's been my issue with a lot of the offensive line recruiting, is that I think that a lot of the offensive linemen that Florida's brought in, good offensive linemen, but you haven't brought in enough of those good offensive linemen. And that's the thing. Quality over quantity, absolutely. But you need quantity as well. Like, it needs to be quality, quantity. It's not just one or the other. You need to have them both. And so adding a Tramell Jones makes your team better, makes your class better. And the Florida Gators, again, building momentum. This probably won't be the only commitment this week, we'll say, or there's a genuine, legitimate chance this won't be the only commitment this week. I'll say that. But the Florida Gators trying to improve their 2025 class, going from 51st to 45th in the composite. Again, not great, or at least the 24/7 composite. We'll look at the On3 one right now. It's not great, but you're building. You're ranked 15th in the SEC right now. Like, I'm not going to pretend that everything's fine and dandy. but you're 31st right now on 3. The only way to get better is to continue adding players. And so as long as Florida is doing that, you can only fault them so much. But they're playing hard. Yeah, that's great. Playing hard and losing doesn't matter. So this week they played hard and they won the football game. They beat a ranked team before Miami did and before Florida State did. They did that. Okay? And then you go out and you get a commitment because you can sell that. Playing hard is a great selling point in year 1 because you get to say, oh, we had instant buy-in. Playing hard but losing in year 3 is not a good selling point. Playing hard and beating a ranked team at home, even if they were a fraudulent ranked team, you get to sell that. And that's what matters, that you have to be able to sell these things. And Florida, you get to sell that. You get to celebrate that. You've still got more to add to this class, preferably at least one offensive lineman. But the Florida Gators, you're building, and that's what matters. And I can't complain about building, right? We can be happy about that. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow talking more Florida Gators victory over LSU. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.